Good afternoon, everyone. Well, depending on your time zone, it might be good morning or good evening. I'm not very sure. So I welcome all the participants of the 6G Wireless Foundation Forum back to this session. We're going to start the afternoon with a panel discussion, which is going to last for 1 hour. So just a word about the registrations. We had blocked the registration site this morning because we had too many people, but now it looks like, given the people that actually connect at the same time on Zoom, I think we're safe. So we have reopened the registration site, and feel free to send the link to your colleagues so that we have as many people connecting on this session. So I will introduce shortly the theme and our top-notch speakers for these panel sessions. But before that, I want to remind the audience that we would like to make this as interactive as possible. So those presentations, by the way, are not pre-recorded. So there's no way the speakers can actually see your questions as they speak, unlike this morning. But for sure, we'll be able to take your questions and voice them directly in the discussion. So make sure to send all your questions in advance in the chat window, please, and I will pick them up as soon as I can. So coming back to the session itself. So as we know, there's a widespread interest from academia and industrial communities to look into 6G opportunities from a research, from service, business point of views. My department is very active also in 6G area as many other labs in Europe and the rest of the world. But frankly, when people around me, especially non-specialists, ask me questions like, why do we need 6G? What it's going to be like? You know, in a time where the public barely adjusted to the idea of 5G, and then surprisingly for many people barely tolerated the idea of 5G, this is really never an easy question to answer for me. So I'm hoping that this panel will shed some light on this. I suspect the underlying fundamental question for us specialists here is indeed, what is it that 6G can offer to society? And why is it that 5G cannot already do it? Or maybe some soon evolution of 5G could do it. So to answer these questions and more, I would like to introduce to you our panelists today. So let me start with Matti Latva-aho, who is joining from Oulu in Finland. So Matti had a career in Nokia Mobile Phones before joining the University of Oulu. He was also a director for the Center for Wireless Communication at the university and has been a head of department for some years as well. Currently, he serves as the Academy of Finland Professor and is also a director for the National 6G Flagship Programme in Finland that you probably are aware of. He received some awards like the Nokia Foundation Award a few years ago for all his achievements in mobile research. So welcome, Matti. Our second speaker is Erik Larsson. He gave a presentation earlier this morning. So Erik is a professor at Linköping University in Sweden. He's an IEEE fellow. He's a well-known author of a book on the fundamentals of massive MIMO that you may be familiar with. He has received a number of awards. Not enough time to describe all the awards here, including the IEEE ComSoc Stephen O. Rice Award and the IEEE Leonard Abraham Prize Award and more awards. So he's well known for his work on MIMO and more recently on massive MIMO and self-free massive MIMO. So welcome, Erik. Our third speaker is Reynaldo Valenzuela, who is joining from New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken, Reynaldo, in the US.
Indeed.
So good afternoon, good morning, good very early morning.
Good morning.
So Reynaldo is a member of the National Academy of Engineering. in the US. He's a fellow of IEEE. He has also received a number of awards from IEEE, like the Eric Sommer Award. He's a Bell Labs fellow, and he's a distinguished member of the technical staff at Nokia Bell Labs. He's very well known for his outstanding work in the area of propagation and modeling of radio channels. He has also done some contributions in the area of head nets, small cells, and a bunch of other contributions looking at future air interface technologies. Our last but not least speaker is Pei-Yin Zhu. Pei-Yin Zhu was our first keynote this morning. I had the pleasure to introduce her this morning already, but in case we have new people joining here this afternoon, let me just remind you that Pei-Yin is a senior VP of wireless research at Huawei. She's based in Canada, so it's also early for her, but not as early as when she gave the keynote this morning. Thanks again for that, Pei-Yin. So she's an IEEE fellow, and she's a fellow of the Canadian Academy of Engineering. She was before with Nortel in Canada. And she's well known for her activity in 3GPP around standardization of 4G and 5G, and now heavily involved with Huawei in 6G work. She was also the author of some pioneering work on MIMO FDM, especially around early prototyping efforts. And she's now heading the 6G wireless research and standardization at Huawei. So without further ado, what I would like to propose for our panelists, if possible, is that they each take a few minutes, and I would like to limit that to no more than, let's say, 5 minutes, to make sure that we have 5 minutes each, to make sure that we have enough time to have thought-provoking discussions with all the audience. We have a pretty good size audience today. I can see already 120 people connected, and probably more later. So 5 minutes each to present your views on, hopefully, the basic question, which is, what is 6G, and why is it that 5G cannot do the job that you envision for 6G? And once this is done, I will open the floor to the public to see what questions are being raised. I will try to pick up the interesting questions from the chat window. So you guys, speakers, do not have to worry about monitoring the chat window. I will do that for you, and we will have a good discussions afterwards. So in principle, you should have your screen sharing feature enabled if everything goes well. So maybe we can start, perhaps with you, Matti, if you want to share your screen and start your quick presentation. Thank you very much. Matti, we see your slides, and I think we can hear you as well.
Yeah, something funny happening with my computer. I have two screens, but I'll try to manage somehow. Okay, you can see my slides. I'll be quick with this. I cannot put it to full screen mode. I'm sorry for that. But what I'd like to do is, okay, wait a second. Maybe I can after all. Can you still see my slides?
Yeah, but we see the presenters mode. So
no. Is it now better?
It's good. Perfect.
All right. Good. So why do we need 6G as 5G has promised to do everything? I think it's very clear answer to that is that we must see 5G and 6G as a whole entity for new era, when we are also connecting lots of things around us to wirelessly to internet. We are not only connecting humans, we are not only interested in mobile broadband, but there are a huge number of other use cases that 5G has only started. We barely understand currently what are the exact requirements for the technologies themselves, how we should optimize wireless connectivity solutions for different critical vertical application areas. And definitely we don't understand yet how the business logics suitable for different vertical areas should function. And there are also lots of regulatory restrictions related to each of hundreds of different verticals that we have to understand better We have to try to solve, we have to try to break the barriers from regulation to make all sorts of fancy futuristic applications possible in the future. It's not only technological issue, but there are lots of politics, economics, etc. related. Then if you look at some examples of different verticals that seem to be quite interesting to broader community, and look at different communication system parameters that we typically put as technical requirements for the system, we see huge variation of the requirements for different verticals. Of course, there are strong assumptions behind these verticals with some typical applications related, etc., etc. So there's a huge variation in the requirements, technical requirements for this, which means that we need also huge amount of customization in the future for optimizing the performance and optimizing the networks, also from energy consumption point of view, the cost-wise, etc., 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 for the needs of different verticals. So 5G has started this journey, and it's still a little bit one size fits all. We have network slicing, which is trying to address these different requirements, but it's not really the best way to do it. But it's a good start. Then there are also other, let's say, reasons why 6G is coming into play. First of all, there's a new mobile phone standard every 10 years. That's obvious. Standardization work will start at some stage. There is a chain of World Radio conferences where the spectrum issues will be set for the 6G. There are lots of societal needs not addressed strongly enough yet. If you look at these UN SDGs and requirements for future smart digital societies, we understand that global coverage is a must that we need for the future. Again, it's not necessarily a technical issue. There are also, again, politics and economics related. These things I think I already discussed. From technology perspectives, there are a lot of critical things that must be addressed very carefully, which are already happening, of course, at 5G, and there's a continuous evolution to make things better and better. Data privacy and security is an issue that must be taken care of very carefully. If you fail in that one, the confidence towards mobile wireless will be lost easily. Networking architectures we may rethink in the future scenarios. For example, when we have a lot of customized local solutions and the service offerings are really much location dependent. So we're talking about multi-tenant systems, and the networks can be built by using all sorts of different technologies. So the overall network architecture should probably be rethought to be more service-driven. So we are keen on offering services to different types of end users, whether they are machines or humans. Super efficiency, utilizing high spectrum bands, efficiency meaning not only data transmission capabilities, but sensing capabilities, low latencies, localization, etc. And of course, artificial intelligence and machine learning is going to change lots of things. And again, we are just learning how to utilize it most efficiently in very complex mobile networks, and how to optimize them dynamically. And even some people are saying that machine learning algorithms could design the whole system for us. Or of course, a whole set of new applications that they will enable. These are my few thoughts on for this panel to be discussed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matti. Eric, would you be okay being next?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. See if I can get my PowerPoint up running. Okay.
In the meantime, I wanted also to tell our audience that we are taking the opportunity to record this particular session, since we don't have any pre-recorded presentations for it, just to make it available to the more general public later on our website. I hope you guys are okay with it, but I prefer to tell you that this exchange is going to be live recorded. Okay, Eric, sorry I interrupted you.
Sure, thank you. So, okay, so the question is whether 5G will be enough or not. And I think I have 3 points to make here. The first is that data rates and capacity that we're building in the system is never going to be enough. I mean, here is the email exchange I had with Marius when I sent my talk for the morning, which I recorded, as you might have seen, using a combination of screen recording and a video camera, and the file was 13 gigabyte for the 15 minutes. And then I was told that, well, this video is too big, we can't handle it, right? So I had to compress it. And I think this illustrates, I mean, clearly the point that no matter how capable systems we build, applications will emerge that make use of the capabilities that the systems offer, right? And looking at, I mean, specifically 5G and 6G technology, I think I made a comment in the Q&A in the last hour about a similar thing here, but my vision is really that we have to explore what are the information theoretic and the physical limits of what's really possible to build, right? And I mean, my favorite example is this enormous, massive MIMO array that covers like the face of a skyscraper and has tens of thousands of antenna elements that could serve simultaneously tens of thousands of terminals out there. I mean, it could be youngsters with an augmented or virtual reality headset, for example, and you know, offering them all basically the full system bandwidth continuously with an extremely high quality of service, which is something that's entirely feasible. I don't see it happening for 5G, but I hope to see this happening, say, within my lifetime, or I mean, definitely in that time span. So that's my first point. My second point is that we're entering a new playing field. And this is also, I think, what Matti was already mentioning, right? With machines being the producers and the consumers of data. And I think that this will, number one, be a driver for 6G development in general. I mean, the way we design the networks and the infrastructure, but it will also potentially be a driver for redesign even of the physical layers. My favorite example here is distributed learning, or federated learning more specifically, where we have some machine learning model that sits in a cloud here or in a server, and then we have devices that want to jointly train this model, right? So each one of the devices observes some training data, which typically they don't want to share with the server for privacy reasons. So the way to get around that is that the server here maintains a learning model, and then the server broadcasts this model to everyone, and each one of the devices performs an update on the model and sends this back the update, right? And here I think there are opportunities for, obviously, for system design all the way down to the MAC layer, but also the physical layer, because the aggregation that will have to happen here at the server is essentially a linear superposition, or a sum of gradient vectors, right, that come on the air interface. And that sum in turn can be computed by exploiting the superposition principle of the wireless MAC channel, which is essentially a consequence of the linearity of the wave equation. And that's known as over-the-air computation or over-the-air federated learning. So in principle, you know, if you think of it, if you have like 100 or 1,000 devices here, rather than multiplexing them through, I don't know, classical time division or frequency division or something, or multiplexing them through massive MIMO, you would just have them send their model updates all at the same time synchronously, and the actual aggregation would happen in the air. So I find this really exciting, and I think it's like this sort of thinking that we need when we think about what 6G should be able to offer us, right? My third and final point is on resilience and trustworthiness. And clearly, I mean, we are building a society that's becoming increasingly reliant on wireless, right? And the question is, can we also make this society resilient? And resilient here, I mean, against different types of adversarial attacks that could be in the form of, well, just simple jamming attacks, right? Or spoofing. But, you know, you could think of like somebody hiring a swarm of drones and having each little drone transmit a spoofing or a jamming signal, and then sending these drones all over the sky of a city, and completely barring any communication in the network, and effectively, I mean, just completely shutting the network down, right? And it would be extremely difficult to how to say, shoot down these drones, right? Or let alone figure out who's behind the whole thing. So I think that we have to be aware of this, and we have to increasingly build systems that are resilient against attacks of this sort, because this is inevitable, unfortunately, I believe, and I think it's something that we should bring with us. Yeah, good. So I guess that probably was my time slot. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eric. Next in line, I would like to ask Ronaldo if you would like to share your views on the questions we've asked. I don't know if you have some slides you want to show, if you want to.
Yes, David, can you hear me?
Very well.
Excellent. Let me get start my clock here, because I tend to get enthusiastic and carried away. So I hope the enthusiasm is still there, but I don't want to abuse others with overuse of my time. So let me share. Can you see my slides?
Yeah.
So let me try to go into presenters view. Okay, good. So
you might want to click one more time your button, because we are seeing your next slide.
Okay, well, it's are you seeing the title slide, right? It says
no, we see also the future slide. I think in my experience, you have to click on there's another mode. I mean, not the presenters mode. There's another mode. I forgot how it's called. It's the third option, I believe. Yeah. Okay. Well, even that would be better.
Okay. I have presenters view or slideshow. Slideshow should work.
I guess.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Better. So I hope you didn't read it too quickly, because it's a bit of a punchline here. Okay, but I'm too.
No, we couldn't see what was written.
So, the question is a fascinating question, because obviously it's like every good question, it's got the stinger of the possibility that maybe 5G is already good enough, and then why are we doing with 6G? So with that in mind, and let me first things first, let me thank you, David, and the organizers, Peter and Marius, for the kind invitation, and it's a great opportunity. Even if it's virtual, for a moment I can transport myself virtually to Sofia Antipolis and enjoy, hopefully, a beautiful background that David has puts us in the mood. But as I said, coming back to topic, do we need anything beyond 5G? Well, let's just start it with, do we need anything beyond 4G? And why do I say that? Because when I started planning for this panel, I did a little bit of research to be up to date and do my literature like we all do, and what I found was an overwhelming abundance of press saying it's a complete underwhelming. And I couldn't find that particular link, but a couple of weeks ago I had read an article saying massive capital investment. If the service providers had put the money in the bank, at the pitiful interest rates that we have today, they would have more return on investment by just doing so. So just one tidbit, and you can read the slide. It's very busy, and purposely so, because I wanted to show that there is no lack of underwhelming, and that's putting it very gently. There are comments like users think 5G is great, but they never paid for a 5G program, or they have a phone that is not 5G capable. So it perhaps is just initial ignorance. But the metrics also show that in a real working network, and there is a recent study by Tutela. By the way, everything here is cited from sources available in the public domain. Throughput improvement, more than 8%. That means barely more than 8%. And at the cost of 8% worse latency, and that is in one major top tier network in the USA. Then of course there is the excuses that we're all familiar with for like, we don't have a killer app. And the recommendations, well, we're gonna have to wait until specific applications. There are some that even say, what you need to do is you need to tie up exciting digital applications to a premium, more expensive 5G plan. So are you going to try and tell people that to do Netflix or Facebook or whatever is your favorite app, you are going to be compelled or obligatory forced to pay a net premium to do what you already were doing in 4G for the same price? That seems to me a sure way of making your customers very upset and antagonize them. So increase in ARPU, and forgive the acronym, but revenue per user has been flat for before 4G. And there was another article I didn't cite, which said, if you look at the revenue improvement from 3 to 4G, was underwhelming. Again, below the 10%, 10% being super generous. I think it was in the order of a couple of percent. So expect the same going to 5G. So we've got to be realistic. We're data-driven scientists, and the reality of the data is telling us we are failing to inspire the users. We are failing to show what this is good for. And I'm talking to 5G. Now, is it possible that I'm wrong? Of course, that's number one of very good scientists, right? You keep it open, the possibility for a alternative reality. And what is the alternative reality? Well, let me just put it there so that we have an exciting panel. The other side of the coin is I can also find, not many, but I could at least find one that is very highly cited because it just came out. Another study that says 5G is not nearly enough. We absolutely need 6G. And they predict an increase on return on investment projected only in the next 5 years of $320 billion with a compound annual growth rate of 133%. Sorry to argue with the financials, but the reality is if somebody has to pay for this stuff. And so what are people going to do? Well, I don't want to bore you because you've heard them before, but video streaming, citing high quality content, augmented virtual reality, of course, industrial applications. We're all waiting for the industrial application to take off big time. And I have a talk on that topic, a little commercial there, but Internet of Things was mentioned before. And further advanced technologies, whatever they may be, they all are, and let me say, there's no doubt that traffic growth exponentially, but this has been what has been enabled under the umbrella of the current revenues. So we're doing this magic trick of continue to deliver more and more and more for the same price. A few industries have such productivity. However, I caution you again, it's tough to make predictions, especially about the future. It's a favorite quote of mine from Yogi Berra from the baseball world in USA. So is it 4G enough already? Or is the explosive growth of insatiable traffic so unstoppable that we need 6G for all these new yet to be invented applications? I think we're at an inflection point. And the rest, I join you in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ronaldo, for all these perspectives. Hopefully the audience will react on many of those in the second part of the panel. In the meantime, Peyin, I would like to invite you, in case you're ready, to share your screen and your thoughts about whether 5G is good enough or not. Peyin, I think you're muted. You have to unmute yourself. I don't know if I have the power. Okay, great, Peyin, thank you.
Yeah, do I need to switch the? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
So,
Peyin's connection doesn't seem to be 6G for
Live.
sure. Peyin, can you hear me?
I'll make signs to her.
Yeah.
In case she can see the video. But I guess we lost her.
It's possible. Okay, she might come back in the discussion as soon as she can. So we have limited time, so maybe let's start the discussion. And Peyin, if you can listen to me, You feel free to interrupt me at any point, and I'll give you the floor back. So anyway, thank you very much for the points you guys raised during your presentations. It was a start. I mean, I'm still very curious personally about the following point regarding the evolution towards 6G, which is, are we like specialists and equipment vendors and operators, are we pushing and forcing an evolution that people don't really need? A little bit like I'm French, so I would say French farmers stuffing food in ducks to make foie gras. Or are we reacting to an actual demand of society going into 6G? Does anyone want to react to this question?
Well, first, I hope the audience, but if there are no questions from the audience, can I take a first crack?
Yes, I don't think it's a good point. Let me check. Ronaldo, I haven't seen the questions yet for the audience, and I would like to encourage the audience to please ask your questions in the chat window.
Hey, David, I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh, Bein, I can hear you.
Welcome back.
Sorry about that. I don't know what's happening. The video just dropped.
No problem.
And also, I'm not allowed to start my video. It seems you need to give me some permission to do that.
Hold on. I'm asking. So I don't think I'm not sure I have the power. But if Ali and Harald can make
no, it's
a
okay.
co-host,
no, it's okay. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, we can see you.
So Ronaldo, please hold.
Of course.
Hold on to your thought, and then we'll come back to the question I was asking. And Pein, you have the floor if you want to show your slides.
Okay, sure. Hope this time will work. Is it okay?
Yes, it's a good start.
All right. Okay, so actually, since I talked about the 6G, I will just show that in fact, 5G is not just stopping there. We have just started the discussion on the 5G advanced this week, in fact, in 3GPP, and it is already agreed that release 18 will start the 5G advanced standardization. But from our perspective, we see while we deploy the 5G, and we actually found that even the existing 5G is not sufficient. There's many aspects we need to continue to improve 5G. One of the aspects is the uplink. We see the huge demand on the uplink. So we see the improvement on the uplink-centric broadband communication for this AR, VR, especially cloud, AR, VR gaming and so on. A huge number of high definition video uploading and so on. And also we see the real-time broadcasting, broadband communication, which requires both latency and the throughput. This is also need to be improved, and also we see some continued improvement in terms of positioning, so especially low power positioning and so on. So in a way, 5G will continue to evolve. So why do we need 6G now? I think I mentioned this in my previous talk on the new services we're looking, which are 5G is still focusing on the connectivity to provide a better connection, and while 6G we're going beyond the connectivity. So that's one thing. And from the networking perspective, 6G is really 5G, when we really designed it, it's having a public network in mind, and we use the slicing concept and hoping to provide a service for the private sector, but there's also, we see the demands, actually people want to run the private network, in the sense that we will have a multi operator from a different sector to jointly run the network infrastructure. So we see 6G will have an open ecosystem. We'll have a private and a public network operator working together. And from security perspective as well, 5G is essentially, we just make sure that a link or the data is secure, the pipe. While 6G, we need to consider a lot more than just the security. We will have to consider the privacy and so on. So that's the general term of trustworthiness. Yeah. And also this 5G mainly is on the analytics side in terms of algorithm, and the 6G we see the joint analytic and the data-driven aspect, and we also need to managing the data as well. From our OEM operation and management of network side, we see 6G will be much more automated. We were looking in that direction. How do we totally automate the network management? And same thing for the coverage side. Essentially, even though 5G, we are adding the non-terrestrial network, some work to basically adapt the 5G design for the network, for the satellite communication. But essentially, these are not really integrated. So 6G, we are looking much better integrated system to provide the better coverage. And from business side, the network will be not just the communication infrastructure, it will be the infrastructure for both communication and computing infrastructure. So you see the quite a significant different aspect we're looking for 6G. So there are boundaries, there are some restriction 5G can evolve. You know, we can always evolve 5G, but at a certain point we need to look beyond that. Okay, so I will stop here. Thanks.
Okay, Payne, thank you very much. We will look at the questions from the public in a minute, but just before you came, Payne, I was asking a question to all of you, and I was wondering if we are trying to force the evolution towards 6G the same way as French farmers are stuffing food into ducks to make foie gras, or are we reacting to an actual demand coming from society and just delivering on it? So maybe some quick reactions on that question, and then there are questions that are coming from the audience that we'll try to address right after that. Ronaldo, you were starting to answer.
Yes, so interesting parallel, and I beg to differ in that we may disagree with the humanitarian aspects, but there is a demand for delicious foie gras. I don't think there is a demand for 5G. And so I think we need to be realistic and stop the rah-rah hype wagon. You know, look at I just did, as I said, a quick search, and it's overwhelming amount of analysts telling us people don't know what it is. Either they have it and they don't know they have it, or they think they have it, but they don't have it. So are we fools or what? We're pushing on a string here. At this point, we have failed miserably to enthrall and inspire people on what 5G is or what can it do for people. Now, don't get me wrong, microelectronics does a fantastic job of allowing us more computations every 6 months, whatever. So yes, there will be a continued evolution, but it's becoming so boring. Like one top service provider, tier 1 in the USA, was asked, will there be a XG? I don't know whether it was asked 5G or 6G. And the answer was, but what silly question, is the next G? Okay, so ad infinitum, we will have the next G. Certainly there is a reality of that, and there is enough money to be made, just continue with business as usual. But face the other transitions, from pure voice to SMS text. That was amazing revolution. You could have your own ringtone, remember? Then from that to full internet access. Those were inspiring transitions that people were lined up to get. What is it that we're telling people they're going to do in 5G? I struggle, and I challenge all of us to become more inspiring And this would drive the research, because it's very different whether you're using sensing to avoid a collision or using a massive distributed MIMO to do gigabits per second. So it drives the research. It's not idle to ask these questions about where the money is and what inspires people. But I hope to trigger some debate, being a little bit provocative. So far, I think we are in the deficit arena of inspiration.
Thanks,
if I may comment quickly back. I mean, what is missing right at the moment is the explosive growth of different verticals. We are still waiting for that, and there are many reasons probably why it's not happening. But that's, in my opinion, what is missing. And 4G does a great job in mobile broadband already. So in that you are absolutely right. But verticals, we have to focus on verticals, I think.
Eric, Peyin, any comments on that, or because if not, we'll move to questions from the audience. Feel free to react first.
It is actually very tough or even philosophical questions to answer. I remember back many years ago, I was, regarding what Leonardo just said about the short messaging. At the beginning, I thought that is the most stupid idea because I said, I already have the phone. I can talk to people. Why should I go back to the, short messaging to send this messaging? But that just goes to say, it's you never know what is popular, what is going to fail, what's going to succeed. I don't have a clue on what will be the killer app. Every generation of people ask the same questions. All I can say is, while you build good things, there's always some better or innovative things coming up. I also have a different view on the people are talking about that we failed, exciting the user in terms of 5G. I think typically it always take time to get a new technology to be adopted. Same for the vertical. Imagine these people. Some of them never even heard about how the wireless is supposed to work. So it does take lots of time to make change, especially when we're coming toward something with this some established technology. They get used to do things one way, and you want to change people to do things differently. This takes time, and I'm confident that it will happen. It's just a matter of time. But in fact, the speed of 5G, how 5G is deployed, is already always amazing me. So I say we're very successful in that sense, and I put it leave it to that.
Okay, great. So the bad news is that we don't have much time. The good news is that there are many questions. So I will ask fellow panelists to be as concise as possible in their answers, and I will try to go through as many questions as possible. The problem I'm facing is that I can see people wanting to ask questions orally, and then some written questions as well. So I will try to go around both type of questions. There's a questions in the chat window, especially addressed to Eric, about the use of federated learning in 6G, and the person is wondering if we'll be able to use uncoded analog transmission capability as part of 6G in order to enable the federated learning things that you are talking about.
Right. I mean, it was my point, right? That now what the standard would look like, I suppose, is open, but my point was that we should, in the design of 6G, explore that type of new designs on the physical layer. Federated learning as such does not require the use of uncoded analog modulation, obviously, but one way of building it is to exploit over-the-air computation, which in turn does require some form of analog modulation. So, I mean, that was just to illustrate that there are emerging new use cases that might have a genuine and deep impact on how we build systems all the way down to the physical layer.
Thanks, Eric. Let me turn to Peter. Peter, you raised your hand. I assume it means you want to ask a question to the panelists.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on Reinaldo's comments that we have failed miserably with 5G. If we are looking at the analytics, yes, that is probably correct. But I also want to remind that these analysts who are writing these reports, they didn't predict SMS and they didn't predict iPhone as well, right? But SMS and iPhone were possible because engineers like us were building technology that could be sometimes used. So I'm here more on the side of Eric, what he said in his talk, that we're going to build good technology and then somebody will use it. But what I wanted to ask in this direction is, do you think that the standardization process is going to remain the same as until 5G? Paying mentioned that it started in 3GPP, but there are also other movements like Open RAN, open interfaces, where people are developing a little bit more open innovation ecosystem. So what is your view that maybe the innovation will be in the new standardization process and then new business models are allowed by it?
David, can I do a quick?
Please.
So please let me first express my respect for 3GPP. That's an incredibly efficient organization, an incredibly powerful and productive way of doing standards that have proven to be incredibly valuable. Cellular industry has a very unique challenge of interoperability. So many vendors produce handsets, many vendors produce base station. It all works together. We have international roaming, etc. And that will continue because, as I said before, even if it's because microelectronics allow you to do more for the same revenue, that more, somebody has to figure out what is that more that you're going to do. So I think 3GPP and standards as we know it will continue into the future for the foreseeable foreseeable time. There may be new experimental, open, AI-driven, absolutely, but I don't think we should diminish the very large effect and productivity that 3GPP has brought.
Thanks, Ronaldo. Let me turn to questions from the audience. I have to say there are many questions. Some of them are more related to 5G deployment, and in the interest of time, I think I'll try to highlight the questions that are really aligned with the philosophical or technical debate that we're having today related to 6G. So for instance, there's a question about whether 6G can be anticipated to be useful in the face of new disasters, a little bit like what we faced the last 2 years with COVID. Do you think 6G could be an enabler of technologies to prevent such disasters or to help in some way about it?
Can I add something?
Sure.
In fact, I think we already see the usage of 5G during the course of this pandemic. We see the usefulness of this 5G technology, and with 6G for sure. But whether we can prevent it, this is actually debatable. But we definitely can. I mentioned actually in my talk that with the sensing technology, we could even, sense the environment, sense people, whether there's a safe environment and so on. You can sense the coughing and the sneezing and those things. So definitely there is a way to help us to combat with this in case something happens again. I hope it will never happen again. Yeah.
I guess the point is that unforeseen bad events like the COVID pandemic can also bring something good with them, right? Like in this case, pushing video conferencing technology ahead at a faster rate than what would normally probably have happened in 10 years. I mean, and this is a matter of both pushing the development of the technology, but also changing the culture. I mean, just the fact that we're sitting here now debating over Zoom, right?
If I may add a bit to this. So I think when we have personalized health services relying on personal devices, whatever, with some smart sensor technologies that are coming up, I think we can use future wireless technologies to prevent many things, not just this, this really serious COVID style thing, but we just process the data enough to collect the data. If people allow that to be collected, then amazing things can be definitely done. But it's probably more on privacy issue, what we will allow anybody to do with our personal data, and that's first thing to be globally solved, I think.
Yeah, so quick comment, we're short in time. So failed opportunity, but it gives you a sense of what could perhaps be inspiring. Cell phones and 5G could have been incredibly powerful in detect and trace for COVID. And as Matti said, that's just the beginning. It could be very incredibly valuable to do accident reporting, automated, incident through, fusion of the sensor data from multiple sources. But I think the technology is quickly getting ahead of what society is ready to do and aware of how to manage and control it. It can also be used for nefarious purposes. So technology, like in the US, they say about some other appliances, it's not intrinsically evil or intrinsically good, but the people who use it, unfortunately, we have of all kinds. And so I'm nervous. Potential is enormous. Are we ready as a society to harvest it for good?
Thank you. Another comment that I saw in the chat window is related to the feasibility and cost, especially, of going to very, very high frequencies. I mean, several speakers today have talked about going to terahertz, and we know this is one of the anticipated components of 6G in principle. Can anyone comment on feasibility and cost perspective of going to terahertz, and who would bear the cost if there's any overhead to be paid? Is it the public? Is it the service providers? What's going to happen from a cost perspective?
I think the question is that who is going to build those terahertz-based networks? It's not going to be, let's say, countrywide full coverage network. It's local hotspot solutions. Private property owners will be building those, and so the costs will be distributed. And it's totally new world, and multiple different players. Some of those open, some of those private, closed. So that's the way I see it happening, possibly, if the technology will be proven valid, first of all.
Yeah, a quick comment. This is very close to my heart of propagation. And so, again, let's not be in denial. Some service providers bought in this idea that it works, and they went ahead and deployed it. And now they find that it's only really wedding cake is the elegant way to put it, meaning it only serves very short distances around a hotspot in line of sight. So to be constructive and positive, you can imagine in the same room, video gaming, AR, VR, incredibly benefiting from vast amounts of spectrums and gigabit per second connectivity at low latency. But I think, again, we're at an inflection point. That could be a very different set of vendors and application developers that are around the millimeter wave or even higher frequencies for in the same room application. That doesn't really suggest that the cellular network and the packet core is involved if your application is in the same room, which is naturally the fit for those frequencies.
Yeah, maybe if I can add a few more things that I don't think this terahertz will be the only one used in 6G. In fact, I think that's only, to me, that's only complementary band. Essentially, we're still going to use lower or mid bands as much as we can for the large area deployment. So I think I agree with comments. We can supplement this short range communication with terahertz as needed. And also imagine if you today, if you do the AR VR, there's always this wire attached to even you have AR VR glasses, and this is quite annoying. If we can use terahertz to make that happen, or we have to use very heavy equipment, which because just want to have the freedom wireless, then you gotta have heavy equipment there. So I think this technology, that's definitely, if we can make it work, there's definitely use case, and people are going to pay for it if it's useful. Yeah.
Thank you. So there are a lot of questions in chat window. I see questions about the role of satellite. I just want to say that there will be a presentation exactly on the role of satellite for 6G. Let me just mention one point that's dear to my heart, that surprisingly I haven't seen raised by the audience or by the speakers. I'm a little bit surprised. We know that 5G has faced tremendous problems of acceptability by the public, at least in Europe, at least in France for sure. And part of this is driven from fears. So there's a health related effects, potential effects of wireless networks, but another one is sustainability, as we know. We also know that 5G is not really delivering on the promise of being energy efficient, or rather it might be energy efficient, but as in terms of global footprint, seems to be doing worse than 4G. What is your view on whether 6G could be actually beneficial in terms of sustained development compared to 5G? Do you think this is a possibility, or do you think that we're continuing down the road of burning energy without limits?
I think the sustainability targets are the really high standard values towards which we as a community should strive furiously. And it's also a good positive message to larger audience and public that these are really going to be beneficial for the mankind. Whatever aspect you look at that, that's to be kept in mind.
But what is your vision? Do you think it will be beneficial?
Absolutely.
We will just try to mitigate the negative effects.
Absolutely. For example, what mobile industry has neglected so far is to provide connectivity to several billions of people around the world, which happen to live in many cases poor areas, rough terrain areas, remote places. So that's one of the things that we have to look at. It's not a technological issue at all. It's maybe more on cost issue, and it's maybe a political issue and many other issues. But that's an example, a positive impact that these technologies will have. I mean, future societies need connectivity, absolutely.
Anybody else has a reaction on that?
Yeah, a quick, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, please. No, please.
Okay, I was going to say, in fact, because we are rolling out 5G so quickly after the standard, typically the product take time to mature, and we are getting with the time we are getting more and more power efficient. The equipment there, and I'm thinking that within few years the power consumption will be cut drastically even with 5G. But there's also another aspect, actually, when we're talking about the sustainability, because we actually utilize the 5G for the vertical industry, then actually there's a side benefit in those industries. They could potentially actually cut down the power consumption and so on. So there's a ripple effect there. And for 6G, I mean, this is our design target. We need to aim for that purpose. Whether we can do better, that's up to us. Yeah. Thanks.
Ronaldo?
Yeah, quick follow-up. Yes, it's up to us. That's a very, very powerful statement that you ended. I want to leverage on. I think it's at 6G is an opportunity, but there is an urgent cry to action to do things differently. Cellular networks are a business. If we continue to run them as a business, we may have very beautiful altruistic discussions among scientists and academics, but the business will put profit above everything else. So when we talk about societal problems, etc., let's not be naive. There is a reason why there is many people who are not connected. It's because they cannot pay. And forgive me for being so rude, but unless we step outside of the existing box thinking, these people will continue not to provide sufficient revenue for networks to be made accessible to them. So we need new thinking, and I don't have the answers, but I think business as usual is not going to address these issues, and these issues, particularly climate change, are extremely urgent, and there's an opportunity for us to start acting differently.
Great. Look, it's 2 o'clock. I wish we could address some of the very interesting remaining questions. I saw one question about privacy issues in 6G, especially Payne, your talk touched upon using the network to perform sensing, and other people talked about high accuracy positioning, and clearly this is a sensitive territory for many people regarding their privacy rights. So I don't know, let's take a minute. If you have just one word to say about this, I'll be very happy. How do we make sure that people accept 6G as a system that is not too intrusive to their privacy?
Yeah, that's the reason. I think one of a very good reason that we need to probably think about the architecture in the sense we can utilize some of technology which is used by, Bitcoin blockchain technology to make sure the sensitive information is actually protected. So this probably will drive the fundamental change when you build the network.
Yeah, quick comment.
Yeah, data privacy issues are now under heavy discussion in ISO standardization as an example. So things are getting together. I'm very confident that privacy issues will be solved in the forthcoming few years, not even very long time.
Yeah, quick comment. The technology is way ahead of society. And I think there is no avoiding that what we need is engagement, participation, dialogue. We need to have users that are engaged and willing to debate and propose and evolve the network. It's not a technology solution. It's a societal that needs change. When users' data is transacted in the marketplace, don't be surprised of the outcome. But when every time the reaction is, every site you go now, I get bombarded with these cookies, yes, cookies not. I'm willing to say, take my data, do whatever, but stop annoying me. So, we are totally confused. And I think the only answer is engagement, participation, and, from all aspects, not just the mercantile and vendor segments.
Eric, any last words to offer?
I concur with the last statement here. I'm not so sure that this will be solved in the next few years, and I'm not so sure that blockchain is the only technology that will be required here. I think there are reasons to be genuinely concerned about privacy aspects in 6G, and in any communication network for that matter. And to me, it seems that this is a problem that's likely to grow in the future rather than to reduce, but we'll see.
Very well. Time is up, I'm afraid. I would like to thank you, the panelists, very much for your participation, sometimes having to wake up extremely early in the morning. So thank you again. It was very enjoyable, at least from my side. I saw all the questions from the public. We barely had the time to address a fraction of the questions. So I apologize to the public, but I think it means that you probably enjoyed the session as well. So thank you very much, everyone. We're going to take a short break now, 15 minutes, a bit less than 15 minutes, and we're going to resume with the next technical session at 2:15 over this same Zoom link. Thank you again, and
bye.
see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.